Excellencies, we don't have very much time. Thank you very much for being here. I think Donald Trump would be really enjoying this conference so far. He would really like that we have begun every session with a question so far about his trip. And I'm afraid I'm going to be no exception, because we still have a lot of questions and details to think about from that visit last week. Excellency Minister Kawari, we had very big numbers talked about in terms of the deals that Qatar was going to do with the US. I think there was 243 billion. But the President also talked about an economic exchange worth $1.2 trillion. That's 5 times Qatar's GDP. Are these plausible numbers? Do we think that this is, did you just engage in a sort of bidding war, or should we take these numbers seriously?
Well, I mean, thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. First of all, I mean, it was a great visit by His Excellency the President, to the region. I think this is a big statement, as Sheikh Mohammed said, for the region, and recognition how important the region economically, politically, and geo-economically and geopolitically, and from a stability. And this is, I mean, something that really we take it, also, and we appreciate it. From I mean, deals perspective, I think I mean, there was the $160 billion deal, with the Boeing. This is with Qatar Airways, and this is a normal, I mean, renewal of airplanes. This is part of the airline business. If you go with any airlines, this is normal, progressions. And the airlines, they do it over a long period of times, and also they have their own capital, their own access to finance. And they do like many deals, like buying and selling and lease buyback. I mean, so it's a very normal deals, and this is not something that we see it. And Boeing is an excellent aircraft, with the GE engine. So it's in line with the Qatar Airways strategies, in line with the and the other deals is in line with our participation. The $1.2 trillion you talked about we are talking about economic partnership. And when we talk about economic partnership, it has a win-win situation. It's the U.S. companies doing business in Qatar. Qatar is doing business with the U.S. trade, and over some period of time. So it's not something abnormal. I mean, QIA continue to invest in the U.S. The U.S. is an excellent market. Is giving good return for QIAs in line with their investment strategies. Looking to the trade, again, U.S. enjoying a huge surplus, with Qatar for many years. Is one of, I mean, U.S. is the biggest import partner for Qatar. So these things are really normal course of businesses, course of actions, and the U.S. being the U.S., it's the biggest, economic partner for Qatar. So I don't see this as like a big number, but this is a very normal course of actions, course of businesses, and course of commercial activities. It's a purely commercial, purely needs. Our defense, partnership with the U.S. is huge, and again, this is something that we benefit, as part. This is part of our, beefing up our military here in Qatar. So it's really something very normal, and we really value the partnership with the U.S. and, I mean, it's very significant.
And just to quickly follow up, I know that the QIA is going to have more and more firepower as you ramp up the LNG exports. What are the key priorities for your international investments?
Yeah, I mean, QIA, they have their own investment strategies based on region, based on sectors. Of course, I mean, the priority sectors, today is technology, AI, pharmaceutical, infrastructure, real estate, and they review these strategies every year, and they change it accordingly. And as I say, I mean, today, the U.S. is I mean, the biggest opportunities are in the U.S., in terms of these businesses, but they continue to spread around as well. And these strategies get reviewed every now and then to make sure, like, they are aligned and taking advantage of the opportunities, yet mitigating risks,
And Excellency, Minister Ali Ibrahim, we had some even bigger numbers talked about in terms of Saudi deals last week. But I guess many people would say the biggest gift that the Kingdom has given to President Trump in recent months is a lower oil price, and it is, at its current rate, is much lower than than the Kingdom needs to cover the external obligations, and certainly well below what you need to balance your domestic budget. So I just want, how are you thinking about how you're going to bridge that gap if the oil price stays roughly where it is? So
thank you, Stephanie. It's important to keep in mind that what we're undertaking in Vision 2030 and beyond Vision 2030 is a long-term, big-picture plan that is all about restructuring the Saudi economy. And I think other Gulf countries are going through something similar. We're doing that because we're investing in resilience, institutional resilience. This means that we will deploy the capital in the way that helps us get these returns, but help us also get the momentum to restructure. If you look at oil specifically, of course, our budgets are no longer driven by oil. Today, they're driven by our priorities. On the energy markets and oil, we've always been solving for long-term market stability. That guarantees that investments will continue to flow to provide the right kind of supply that the global economy needs. And of course, as part of that is OPEC plus discipline. So if you ask us 6 months ago, 1 year ago, etc., we'll always tell you that we're always ready for scenarios, multiple scenarios, and we have the buffers. We have the long-term fiscal planning and medium-term frameworks that help us adjust depending on what scenario actually plays out. But we're always thinking about not the next 12 months, but a longer-term horizon. And that's what most of the GC countries are doing as well. The GC countries and the economies are bright spots or jewels in the global economy today because of the ability to plan long-term, because of the ability to deliver long-term, and because of this institutional capability that's growing, coupled with leadership's vision, people's determination. But that institutional capability is helping us ensure that we continuously evolve and become agile.
And it is true that in the past, you have been agile, you've responded to periods of lower oil prices by cutting the domestic projects. I guess now we look at the pipeline of projects you have, things like the World Cup. They are commitments that are hard to reduce. So do you still have that flexibility when you have this enormous pipeline of committed spending and big projects?
So this transformation is anchored in discipline, but also bold action. We've prioritized our spend for many reasons. Predominantly, how do we accelerate our diversification? How do we continue to empower human capital and to continue to build institutional capabilities? Of course, a subset of that has to do with public commitments, global commitments, such as that of the World Cup and Expo 2030, and so on and so forth. And that's all in our priority list.
And Minister, Excellency, Minister Simsek, we were talking earlier, the biggest thing that happened last week during Donald Trump's trip to the region, at least where Turkey is concerned, was the lifting of sanctions on Syria, and indeed your President was on the phone call. We've also seen the PKK give up on 40 years of war against the Turkish state. What's the peace dividend or the economic dividend that comes from that for Turkey?
Well, peace dividend will be great. First of all, we're looking forward to...
Just hold on, I think you lost your mic. There you go.
Oh, it's not working? All right, I have a new microphone. So peace dividend is likely to be massive. First of all, having a stable, peaceful, and prospering Syria on its own is a huge gain for the region and, of course, for Turkey, because we've got 911 kilometers of border with Syria. So clearly that is going to help in a big way, because conflicts drag you down, and as we address the conflicts, as we rebuild functioning states, it's a huge boost for the entire region. So that has been a welcome move. But going back to one of the components of you've highlighted, the PKK has waged almost a 50-year war against Turkey. But last week they have agreed to disband and disarm. this is also huge because according to a study, including the opportunity cost, we have wasted almost $1.8 trillion over the past 5 decades combating terror. Now, of course, the peace dividend would be huge in terms of channeling resources to more productive areas for development, for progress. So in that sense, these two developments are going to be huge in terms of geopolitics no longer being a drag, but actually, being a source of leverage to help Turkey move up.
And foreign investors would be hearing that and would feel positive about it, but at the same time they have in their head the detention of Mayor Imamoglu in March and the very sharp fall in the currency that came with that. Investors were very frightened off at that time. They seem to be still hesitant to come back to Turkey, even though the currency stabilized, even though you have very high, painfully high interest rates. What is it going to take to pull back the long-term investors?
Well, first of all, the 3-year program that we have put in place is on track, is intact, and is delivering. We have inflation which is still high, but at 40 months low. And over the past 2 weeks, there's been, again, recovery in FX reserves. Investors are actually back. Interest rates are coming down. CDS, the risk premium, has fallen significantly by well over or close to 90 basis points. So actually, if you look at the past few weeks, there's been a recovery in investor sentiment, and that's reflected in financial market conditions.
Very quickly, not so much, though we don't see it so much on the sort of longer-term money, which obviously you would feel, I would assume, more comfortable than the hot money coming in. So we still haven't seen that. Of course,
the program doesn't rely on hot money, but FDI has also picked up over the past 12 months. Turkey is a very large economy with a pretty decent infrastructure and a huge pool of talented people and significant regional integration. So highly diversified economy. So I think when the dust settles, they will be looking at countries that are resilient to global trade fragmentation. They'll be looking at countries that would benefit from stability and prosperity in the region. I think Turkey remains the top candidate in terms of FDI inflows. And, with disinflation, predictability is improving.
Mr. Al-Gawari, we mentioned Syria. How are you continuing to support Syria? And are you thinking about investment in real estate or other areas where you can support reconstruction?
Yes. I mean, regarding Syria, I just add to the word of Excellency Mohammed, on Syria. Syria is very important. The stability of Syria for the region is extremely important, and the prosperity of Syria is very, very important. And now we have a great opportunity with the presidency and the government in place now to really, to see stable Syria, growing Syria economically. In terms of our role for Syria, I think Syria now, they are building a country from scratch, and they will need all the help they need to, establish the country. They need energy, they need water, they need an economy, they need, infrastructure. So, us and our partners, for example, Qatar and Saudi Arabia, that we announced that we paid their arrears with the World Bank. This will unlock around $180 million of support from the World Bank. Also, we're supporting them, again with our partners in Saudi and others, for example, to develop their electricity, to develop their energies. So I think Syria at this stage really needs help to establish themselves, as a country. Going forward, I think with the plans, they have in place, I think it's going to be a great economic opportunity there for investments and for really supporting the Syrian people. Syrian people are very talented. We see them, in Germany, we see them in many other places where they have, contributed significantly to the economies of these countries. So I think Syria's, growth, and development is very important for us. So this is something we are committed to do, support it.
Just thinking about other regional investments, Kuwait is discussing converting its deposits in Egypt to investments. We saw the UAE do that last year. Is that something that Qatar is considering?
Yeah. President Sisi was in Qatar over 2 weeks ago, and we announced, again, an investment package, with Egypt. So we continue to see Egypt as a great opportunity for investments. In terms of whether to convert the deposits or, to do further investment, this is not something we have discussed, but we continue.
You're not discussing it.
No, it's an option, but it's not something we're gonna. It's one of the options. But in reality, what we see is Egypt is has great opportunities.